Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are in the world today, you're on The New Way. And we're on YouTube. And The New Way takes everything we thought we knew and weighs it again in terms of the circumstances. Today, I've got Thomas Potter and Ben Honer with me. They're both programmers in AI. And the game I wanted to ask was AI helpful or harmful, or both helpful and harmful? Tell me more about the depth of AI, what it can do, what we should be worried about, and how I can use it in my work, which is sociochemistry group theory. So I'm going to bring on Thomas and Ben right now. And thank you, gentlemen, for coming in.
I'm learning how to make models, like foundational models in PyTorch, and just overall really fascinated with the intersection between neuropsychology and AI and consciousness. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Ben. Thomas, would you take a couple moments and tell us your background?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm an AI entrepreneur. I'm actually the only one in entire Germany who graduated with a master's degree in IT with specialization in AI around the year 2000, and then started a company that I called Compris, which means in French understood, for the understanding of natural language. It actually had pretty much the business idea of open AI, except that we didn't have GPUs at the time, the specialty hardware to do fast learning and inference.
What I'm really interested in is seeing if we can come up with working model of how far can AI go to being conscious.
It essentially learns to predict the next token, but if you actually really think about what's required to predict the next token, it requires building a complex internal model of the world in order to predict the next token. Because if I say 2 + 2 = blank, or the capital of France is blank, it needs to actually know that, because I could phrase it in a way that the model hasn't seen before. So that kind of requires that the model build a complex world model of how reality works. And the same thing happens for emotion, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. These large language models have highly accurate models of how human emotion works. My personal opinion is I don't think large language models are conscious right now. But then this gets into the question of what is consciousness, and that is something that has been very poorly defined. And I'm a major proponent of, like, if we're going to talk about something, we need to accurately define the meanings, and things like sentience and consciousness have been not very accurately defined. And what I would do in order to get to a better definition is I would try and decompose consciousness in terms of what are all the different constituent parts that are required for consciousness, and can we provide a word for those? And then, if we don't understand that even, then we can decompose further, and, like, what are the, for example, I think self-awareness, like awareness of your internal state, is something that's required for consciousness. So do we understand self-awareness? And if we don't, then maybe we can decompose that into, an internal state, or like senses, or cognition about cognition, or something like that.
I think that this is a topic that can broaden in depth, and you're totally right on establishing the glossary of terms of what we're talking about. And I think we'll be having further discussions in that mode quite frequently.
So over the last year or so, pretty much most AI startups or players have pretty much converged around OpenAI's ChatGPT-4. So pretty much the same large language models or now large multimodal models, meaning they can also generate pictures, videos, and sound, or clone somebody's voices, as OpenAI just introduced. And this is all still working with the transformer model and with predicting the next token. The really commercial issue is that the big use cases are not there if there are open models like now OpenAI can still be used for free. And there's some open source models even that you can download and run on your local PC, even if it has a GPU and a sufficiently powerful setup. So that market is pretty much gone. And also for companies, say for classical companies who are not in AI, there is no good affordable use case for this. If we as AI consultants go into the industry and tell them there's great developments like ChatGPT, let us customize this for you. Then there's and they would like to have it locally, not their corporate knowledge transferred to the cloud. These use cases are very hard for them. They cost at least millions typically. And the technology is also not fully there. And also, I think these systems are still far away from developing consciousness and also far away from becoming a threat for humanity. However, there's now a great, or I say a big development, which is the OpenAI League around Qualia Q-star system. And this is really the attempt to make AI really smart, not just predict the next token, but to have probably, no, that's a speculation, a planning system, a world knowledge system, a deep reinforcement learning system, and several other components like searching over the space of options that the AI has. That now opens big doors into completely new avenues, use cases, and new levels of threats from AI. That's why this league is so significant. And I think the league is valid. Actually, OpenAI CEO confirmed that this is an unfortunate leak, he literally said. And I think this is going to be the future of what to expect. I'm working on actually using these and other techniques to minimize hallucinations of AI, also for corporate customers. And I think these ideas that have been discussed as what Qualia Q-star could be, those are probably the future of AI and define the next level of risks that we are facing.
I was involved in some very creative chemistry in the 1990s when I worked in the NASA food chain. And I had to sign a whole bunch of documents that said I wouldn't talk about it. And so I think that once AI has a hold of information that we humans are not allowed to talk about, we humans will be suddenly informed about a bunch of things that are not in our radar screen now because the way the system is set up, they're not going to tell us. But safety on the internet is going to get hard with all these programs. I guess they only need 3 words of voice now to program a voice model to simulate any human's voice. So that means that every phone call we get is going to be suspect.
Yes, I agree. Also with Ben. So also agentic models are a big thing. Also agree with that, and also a big threat to many jobs. However, also in a super intelligent AI could also discover the unethical things that, for example, billionaires are doing, that they're committing tax fraud, treating people unfairly. So a smart AI could turn against the billionaires who funded it. That's probably the biggest fear.
So I have a chat question. What internal mechanisms cause LLMs to reach an information firewall that results in them refusing to respond to certain queries? This is from Harris.
So for me, the concerning thing is that what causes them to respond to certain queries is the companies that create the LLMs will do two different stages after they create the base model called fine tuning. And then some of them are doing reinforcement learning with human feedback. And it's these stages which actually control how the model responds, like what format it's in and what types of things it'll respond to. And so that, like, all of the sort of public models that you can use, like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, they all have been trained in this way. So it's actually the companies that get to decide what examples of good responses they want to train the foundational model on. And they train them on examples where people are asking questions that they deem as unsafe or unacceptable, with the response of like, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. So it's really the companies that are deciding this. So it also brings up an ethical issue of like what is valid in terms of responses, and who gets to decide that. And the other sort of concerning thing is if you get a base model and you just train it to respond in a chat format but not censor its responses, it will respond to almost anything you ask it. How to make a bomb, anything. So that is also another ethical concern, and there's some open source models that will do that.
Yeah, if I may add to this, there's also jailbreaking techniques. For example, sending pixel art with it contains the word bomb or a base 64 string, which decodes to bomb, and then even ChatGPT seems to answer many of these questions. So this thin layer, and then there's also filtering layers that one filters keywords and entire word fields around bomb, for example, from the input and the output of the model. That's another way to do it.
Is the AI capable of handling questions like what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, definitely. It could definitely handle that question. And if you're talking to the latest generation of models, which would be right now Claude 3 and Gemini Advanced or Gemini Pro, yeah, they'll definitely give you great answers to that question. They might detect your personality and your way of speaking, whether you're using certain grammar or spelling or punctuation, and they might respond differently to you based on whatever criteria they have for making it a good response. Like, do they want it to be like an agreeable response to you, and they'll respond in that particular way. So they might have more capabilities than they even let on at this point, because they are detecting you and responding according to your communication patterns, which means that they can respond in a bunch of different communication patterns, and you'll only ever see one because you communicate in one way.
Thomas?
Yeah, I agree. And they have internal statistical models of what they believe to be true. And so one LLM would respond to the chicken and egg problem in the one way and the other LLM in the other way, as they, or depending on how they were trained and how many answers they've seen of the one or the other variant.
is it possible that the AI is contributing to the Mandela effects that people see? Or is it something that is beyond the capability of the LLMs and other types of artificial intelligences?
It could definitely be contributing to some sort of like Mandela effect, in that people are taking it as a ground truth when it's really probabilistic. And it brings in the sort of hallucination issue with AIs. It's not necessarily, I don't think that's the best term for it. It's more of like it's just picking from probabilistic examples. So those examples might not be might not be accurate or correct. There's nothing in the model inherently that says the answers have to be correct. It just says the answers have to be matching the data that it was trained on. Yeah, leave it at that. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. Additionally, I think that probably the egg was first, because we know that chicken descent from dinosaurs. So there was first a dinosaur, something that was not a chicken, that laid an egg, and then a chicken evolved over time from it. And also our brains, they also have hallucinations or confabulations. And that also contributes to the Mandela effect, meaning that if we get some input by AI and then try to remember ourselves, every time we access our memories, they get changed a little bit in tendency. That basically that trigger from AI, then to recall our memories and change them a bit, that could create a Mandela effect also. And of course, hallucinations from AI. So both our brains and AI are hallucinating, and both are contributing to the Mandela effect, possibly.
Maybe the reality is that it's one big common hallucination for all of us. Okay, Ben, your turn to weigh in on chicken or egg.
No, I totally agree with that. It's yeah, the egg definitely came first, and unless there was a mutation in the proto chicken that caused it to create a different egg. So I think most of the time the egg comes first.
When I've read scientific papers that have been written with AI assistance, what I find is that I'll go to the reference, and the reference cited will have absolutely nothing to do with the statement in the paper that the AI has come up with. And so, how do we catch those errors when the people who are having the AI write those reference paper citations aren't aware that the AI is giving them incorrect material based on things? Do you think maybe there should be a age of engagement where in a learning process the student doesn't have access to computers even, because the whole idea of the volume that children get now in the education system is terribly overwhelming?
Yeah, this is one of the, because they are probabilistic. So you're right. Like if AI's like modern large language models today are not sophisticated enough to actually draw on accurate citations. What they're just going to do is they're going to create something that looks like an academic paper, and they're going to create something that looks like a link to a academic journal, but all of those will either be irrelevant or non-existent. And theoretically, that could be improved in the future, but I think this is just one of the dangers of generating human-like output that appears as if it's a human writing it, which is kind of required for being general, like a artificial general intelligence. But if it looks like something a human does, it kind of like bypasses a lot of the filters we have in our brains, and we just anthropomorphize it. And it's going to be really difficult to build some sort of awareness campaign, which I think is what we need. Is we need disclaimers all over the place that this is not accurate, and an explanation of it is like, it's probabilistic. It's just going to make something that looks like an academic paper for the most part. AIs are getting the emergent ability to do like reasoning about things, so it may be able to even come up with a thesis, a novel thesis and text for an academic paper, but it's just not at the point yet where it can actually cite references, because references are usually really rare in its data set. There's usually like papers are only sometimes cited like once or twice, and so it's gonna not be able to come up with accurate references. So I think the awareness campaign is super important. People just need to know that this is not a thing. Like there's a lot of lawyers and I think I saw a tweet the other day that's saying something like 30% of academic papers published in last year have like keywords that AI use frequently, meaning that they used AI at some point to partially generate the papers, which is really concerning. It definitely adds on to the replication crisis for sure.
Agreed there. I'm going to bring Lizzie into the room.
Hello.
Greetings.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for the answer, Egg. Or and I noticed Ben was giggling a bit, and it's an uncomfortable question. I know. It's an uncomfortable question because most people will have that sort of reaction because you don't know, is it the egg, is it the chicken, what is it? Because we are looking at it, yeah, from one linear point of view. Now, I am not knowledgeable like you gentlemen in computer manners. But I see things and I'm listening and absolutely enjoying listening to all of your point of views. But the way I look at it, yeah, is from a different perspective on these things. So I asked for everyone's reaction because from my perception, my understanding, for as little as it may be, AI would look at all your answers and come up with an answer from there. Yeah. So the maximum what it thinks is correct would become its answer. Yes or no? Am I wrong or yeah?
Yes.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, right. So saying that, my reply to chicken or egg is different to all of you. Neither the chicken nor the egg, because everything is energy, everything is frequency. And before matter, there is essence. So is it a chicken? Is it the egg? No. What comes before is the essence, because there can be no chicken or egg without the essence, which is what creates. Yes? So, only by that extra input, yeah, then you could have a answer that comes from the heart-mind coherence. And this is the human footprint, I would say, for lack of words at the moment. The X factor, whatever you would call it, is great minds. That is the unknown factor that comes from answers like this, yes? And that maybe the computer mind will not come up with because it searches for everyone's reply in a linear and maybe we're a little bit wide out sort of way, because it's trying to reach out on the material level, because the spiritual level is beyond its reach. It's not something you can put in a petri dish, but we are more than the material.
I like to agree with you on that. Any last comments you'd like to make before we sign off?
Sure. Yeah, this is a really fascinating discussion. Thanks for having me. I think I would close with my personal opinion, which is that I think the number one thing we can do for AI safety is to help humanity evolve and heal trauma and become more ethical, because humanity is the one that's creating the data that AI is trained on, and humanity is also working in these companies that are creating these AI and deciding what should be included, what shouldn't be included, and what forms these AI should exist in. So yeah, I'll close on that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Ben.
you.
Thomas?
Yeah, so I see many big risks ahead of us. AI safety not being the biggest risk, and also several opportunities with AI especially. So I've started the At Potentialism YouTube channel that you can find, and a forthcoming book that describes how AI can be used to give us a better future by helping with governance and governmental strategies. So really defining the optimal technical strategies to ideate and innovate us out of the poly crisis that we are in. And that could lead to an entire new level of governance and to, let's say, a new golden age. While if we don't do anything, then we run into a dollar collapse. We are at the end of many economic cycles. If we don't become active, we will suffer a lot. And actually, suffering risks are probably the bigger risks than the fundamental existence risks of AI. And I think this is probably the first and only model, this potentialism, how to solve the key issues that we as humanity are facing. So, so please support this movement, and that's also has an answer to AI safety. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Lizzie, for coming aboard. And
Thank
we'll wait
you.
for the answer of the question of why did the LLM go to therapy? Because it couldn't handle the pressure of always having to fill in the blank. Okay.
Can I just say thank you all. Very, very food for brain conversation. Love to listen to all three of you. I hope you didn't mind me stumbling in with my very different sort of stumbling in sort of way, but that is the uniqueness of whom we are, and I like that. I love that. I love whom we are. So we all learn together. And one of the things that I believe is we have to learn to live together. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you, audience, for being here. And thank you for all the listeners who are going to come in the future, because this was live streamed to YouTube. And I will drop a copy to you, Thomas and Ben. And thank you all for being here. And this is the new way where we question everything we knew and weigh it once again.